What's up, fam? Here we are. Here we are. Joe Paul's about to get on. What up? What up? You're not gonna want to miss this. Let me know if there's any topics you want me to cover. Joe Paul is about as straight a shooter as you are going to come across. So can't wait till he gets in. What up? What up, Steve? What's up, bro? Yes. There you are. There you are. Let's go. It's on now. It's on now. Joe Paul, where you at, bro? Yes, not let me accept. Hmm. What's going on with that, bro? Joe Paul. What up, what up, what up, everybody? Yeah. I'm trying to get this guy on. Oh,
I'm here, babe.
yes.
What's the deal, my brother?
Yo, man, I've been waiting for this moment for a while, man. Shit.
Me too. Me too. There's barely any other Jews that smoke like me and you. So I was like,
I
we're gonna have a nice little smoke session. We're gonna fucking get it popping right now.
Oh, you got something rolled up right now or what?
I always got
Yeah.
something rolled up. I got something here. I got something here. I got a whole bag of full of treats if I need to restock, but I'm good.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
Hold on. Jay Sway is saying there's no sound. How's the sound, everyone? In the chat, put a thumbs up if you could hear us loud and clear.
Uh, my sound, do you hear me? Hold on, let me
Yeah,
see. My sound looks
I
looks
hear you
good.
perfectly.
Okay, all right.
I just want to make sure it's a pleasant audience experience.
That's
That's all.
right. That's right. So where are you, brother?
I'm in Staten Island, New York, but do not hold that against me. What up,
Wow,
Ivy?
man. That's deep, man. That's deep New York. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
deep.
it's like we're like at the edge of like New Jersey. I mean, we're like the outcast. We're like the redheaded stepchild of the New
Right.
York.
But you guys, man, you guys have the heavy accents. Woo.
Yeah, I mean, it's more influenced by like the TV shows and stuff like that that we've been like accustomed to watch in New York. I mean, everyone kind of has this sort of accent. I mean, I could speak very like prim and proper if I really wanted to, and put on the professional voice like, "Hi, how you doing,
You could do
sir?" Or if like
you could pull that
uh,
off, can't you?
of course, I'm like Leonardo DiCaprio in the Departed. It's like you have two accents, don't you, son of a bitch?
Uh-huh. Wow. No, but like there's something, forget refined or not. There's a New York accent, obviously, right?
Right.
And I find it a lot more heavy in Staten Island, Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
Manhattan, almost not at all, and Long Island as well.
Yeah.
Heavy accent,
Yes,
you know?
anywhere you go, you could always tell someone's from New York, and they always have a little fun like this. Like, you're from New York, aren't you? It's like, oh, how'd you know? It's like, oh, I can tell by your accent. It's like, oh, okay.
No, no,
All
you're
right.
hey look, bro, you got heavy accent. I think it's cool as shit. Cause I love the New York accent. But you got heavy accent, which is dope.
Well,
And there's nothing you
I've
can do
also,
about it.
yeah, I've also been in the hip hop industry, so it's like I've had to like kind of condition my voice to kind of command authority, and the New York accent is nothing that commands authority like that. So
I
fucking forget
agree.
about it.
I agree. It's like you're doing business with somebody for the first time and they got that heavy New York accent. You're like, okay, let me keep my head on a swivel.
Right,
You
because I'm
know,
probably gonna get scammed.
you know what I'm saying? So wait, tell me about your hip hop background, because I wasn't sure.
Okay, so I've been in the hip hop industry since like 1998. Uh, Came up, in the boom bap style of rap. I was in a rap group called Sex, Money, and Guns with Smooth the Hustler, Trigger the Gambler, Ice T, and DB Alias Christ. And I was that
What?
yeah, I was that
Hold
I
on a
was that
second. What did you tell me? You were in a rap group with Ice-T called
Yeah.
Sex, Money, and Guns.
Yes, I was there. I was one of the last members to kind of like be
Uh-huh.
affiliated with them, and yeah, it was a great time. I mean, Smooth Trigger and DV were like my really close friends, and Ice was the obviously the head chief and commander. So
Okay.
I was blessed to be around his presence for for a couple of years, and great guy,
Yeah.
and yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I haven't spoken to him in a whole bunch of years.
Uh-huh.
He still doesn't follow me on Instagram because I had a different name back then. I used to go by Lyric Enforcer, and he doesn't really know me as Joe Paul. So,
I got
you know,
you. I
so
got you. But so where'd you grow up in Staten Island?
I grew up in Staten Island. I lived in Brooklyn for a bunch of years after I got arrested. My parents kicked me out and
So
said,
what was your childhood like, man? What was it like? If you
"Well,
seem like a real motherfucker, you ain't no fucking like nerd mother. Even though nerds are cool, everybody's cool. But
yeah, I mean,
obviously,
I'm an undercover nerd. Like I'm an undercover like history and conflict nerd. It's like if people knew the amount of knowledge that I have in my brain, I would go against almost any scholar or historian in the world at this conflict.
like,
That's how much that's how nerdy my shit is. But my childhood was you know, um, I guess it was pretty average. I mean, I have a twin brother, so in the '80s, the economy was not the greatest in the world, so it's like for for you know parents to have to provide for two children at the same time that they were only expecting one, and so it's double the price, double everything.
well,
So
especially
they
back then, you didn't know there was no ultrasounds,
right.
so
I
you had
mean, and
no fucking clue.
well, there was an ultrasound, but the thing
Okay,
was that the way my mom is
I
like,
tried that.
yeah, my mom is like 4'8". So
Really?
she was gigantic, like her belly was out to here,
Oh
but
my
my brother
gosh!
was in front of me. So the ultrasounds back then didn't see that there was another child
It wasn't like a
behind.
3D ultrasound,
And well, not
right?
even 3D. It was like
It wasn't
maybe
like
2D at the time.
2D. Right,
So,
right, right.
so they couldn't see me until like maybe like a month before my mom was
Oh,
about to give birth. Like, oh,
OMG! All right.
yeah, there's a second one in there because your stomach is huge. So, but they provided for us,
Did you
pretty
go to public
well.
school?
Yeah, we went to public school. We didn't go to like yeshiva or anything like that. We did go to Hebrew school, and I hated
Me
Hebrew
too.
school when I was
Me too.
Judah.
I
What up?
bro. Hey, bro, I went to Hebrew school too. I had anything to get out of it.
You know what it is? Because there was like 8 Jews in my school, and me and my twin brother consisted of 2 of them. So it's like while everyone was out playing, while everyone was out, running the neighborhood, and riding bikes and kickball and stickball and
Right.
scully and everything else,
Yeah.
we were singing, we give thanks to God for bread as we
I know
rejoice
that
in
one.
so together as our daily prayer is said. And then, so I hated it because it was
Right.
like
It wasn't
nobody else was Jewish,
so.
and plus, kids are fucking mean back in the day. Like they were
Yeah.
always like, like you killed Jesus. I'm like,
Right.
who? Like, no, I didn't. I'd be like, I didn't kill anybody. And it's really crazy that kids, and they get that from their parents, obviously. So
Of
it's not like
course.
living on their own,
Right.
and in 1956, there was a decree that was released by the Roman Catholic Church, which was a 2,000-year apology for the complicity and basically the cause of starting the lie that the Jews killed
Wow.
Jesus. So they issued an apology, and it's like did you know that information?
I didn't know that they issued an apology.
Nobody
Yeah.
does. And that right there is one of our biggest downfalls, that whenever there's something as major as that, which is the source of a lot of
So hold on.
contention.
Okay, wait. Before I want to get into this,
Let's go.
Sorry. I just wanted to lay a little more foundation. So you grew up,
I got
and you're one of the few
plenty of
Jews.
weed, so let's
Yeah.
go. Let's do it.
Okay, good. Just making sure. If you did, I'll send somebody over there, brother. So, you know, but okay. So you grew up with one of the. Oh Lord. Okay, you don't need my help. So you grew up in an area where you were one of the few Jews. You're saying.
The
What up? What up?
school
What
that,
up? Ghost peace.
yeah,
What?
the school that we went through, it was not populated by Jews at all. Thank God, my parents sent us to the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, in the summertime. So I got to be around a lot of, other Jews, and that gave me like a little bit of the, confidence that like, okay, there's other people, like us, and nobody's calling us fucking Jews here because we're all fucking Jews.
Right. Right. So, did you keep Shabbos or anything?
Not really. We we celebrated all the holidays.
Uh-huh.
We wear the kippah. We would go to temple on Rosh Hashanah. And
Same me here. Same the basic path for sort of the American Jew
right,
who's not
this is
religious.
this is the Reformed Judaism movement. This is
Right.
the practice of a majority. I don't want to. I don't really know the statistics, so let me not even like put it out there. But
Right.
I would say the majority of Americans are Reformed type of Jews that celebrate the holidays. Are proud that they're Jewish, but that's kind of where it stops. They don't know the
They don't know
history.
the
They don't really know the culture.
history.
They don't know the meanings, and they don't really care to defend it, other than be like, I'm Jewish, right? Don't say that shit.
Right. Well, I find like reform and conservative is really almost the same thing. And then
Yeah,
Orthodox is the real deal.
of
And
course.
Orthodox is the
mean,
real deal.
I mean,
You
there you could be in the middle of secular and Orthodox, and like you could keep kosher, you can keep Shabbat,
but
but
still
it's
do
but it's
coke
but
and
it's
get
not like but
hookers.
it's not like you're reading Torah every day. It's not like you're rapping to Tefillin
You know,
every
you
day.
can you can do any level you like.
Yeah,
You
I
can do
agree.
as much as you
Yeah,
want. So,
and and the funny thing is, no matter what level of practice of Judaism or Jew that you are, they will still kill you because you're a
exactly.
Jew at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No matter who you're rooting for. Okay, we just want to bring you back. You were in the hip hop scene. Were there a lot of Jews there?
No, and back then it was like, I mean, we're gonna go through a lot of like the blood libels and myths and
Hell
everything
yeah.
like that. It was always like, oh, the Jews run the entertainment industry, so you don't want to really like say that you're Jewish, because if you make it, that means that somebody might have looked out for you, and then you're not going to get the credibility that you deserve, because somebody gave it to you rather than earning it. So
Right, strange dynamic. God
other
damn.
than me, yeah, other than me rapping, saying look out for me and my crew when you can't fuck with the rapping Jew. I mean, other than
Okay.
them hearing that, there was very, very few that were out there. Like
Right.
MC Search,
Sure.
was a Jew, and when in the MySpace days, when he was doing that the Next Great Rapper
Oh yeah.
show, he had asked me to like audition for it, but I thought who I was, because I'm with fucking Smooth and Trigger, and we're like, we're hanging out in Ice-T's penthouse and, doing this and that. I was like, yeah, I don't need to do the Next Great Rapper show. I
No,
was like, I'm already,
you're already there. You
I'm
should have
already,
done it though, right?
yeah, arrogant little
I,
prick I was. There
I
was no
was
question
too.
about
I was
it.
too. I
But yeah,
was
no,
too, brother.
not too many Jews, at all. Not too many that I even really knew about. I mean, Ice-T's manager, was manager at the time was Jewish. Ellis Pacheco, awesome guy.
Yeah.
His father is Johnny Pacheco, the famous Spanish
Of
singer.
course. I'm a huge fan of Johnny Pacheco.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
his son is awesome. Ellis, he's a
Wow. Okay.
great, great dude. But other than that, no. I mean, I can't really think of any other Jews that really were. I mean, there was Rob Schwartz from Who Mag magazine, but
Yeah.
that's not
Gotcha.
really in my lane. But yeah, no,
So
it was few and far in
you
between.
let me ask you something. Have you experienced anti-Semitism?
Of course, of course. I mean, like I was talking to somebody about this the other day, because they were like, "Oh yeah, well, what sort of racism or anti-Semitism have you faced?" And I said, "Well, I've never been pulled over for driving while being Jewish, but I have been in a fight, or a bunch of them, whether it was because I was Jewish or not. I still heard in my head, get that fucking Jew. You're gonna stick up for that fucking Jew,
Really?
or so."
So,
And I
so
don't know.
did you brawl a lot, man? Did you brawl a lot growing up?
I tried not to. I mean, I got into
That
a
sounds
bunch of
like
stuff and
that
stuff,
sounds like a
but
yes
but me,
to me.
but it wasn't because of me. It was because my friends were all fucking hotheads and jerk offs, and they like to start fights with everyone. And once you
Once
get,
your
16,
friends are
like,
fighting, right or wrong,
yeah,
you're fighting.
right. Listen, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, back in the mid 90s, when you throw alcohol, acid, mescaline, You throw all of these fucking different, type of, stimulants and barbiturates into the mix, you're going to get a recipe for disaster. And I hung out with these kids called the Springville kids, who they were just fucking nuts. They like on an everyday basis, it was like, let's go and fight. And me, I was all about like, no, I want to smoke weed and get some pussy. I'm not, it's hard to keep my heart on if my fucking eye is like out to here and the girl's looking for like. So,
Wow, bro. Yeah, but I
I
know
got.
tough kids out there, bro, for sure. Staten Island, moms.
Yeah, but I got into a couple of scuffles. The funny thing is, nobody has. I shouldn't even say this because then people are probably going to be like, you know what? I'll do that. Nobody has ever squared up with me. Never. No one's ever like, let's go right now. Put your hands up. Let's go.
Gotcha.
It's always been. They've always had to sucker punch me. And listen. Even back then, I've been vertically challenged my whole life. I'm a short shit. Like, yeah, maybe I'm a little stocky and stuff like that. And you don't know if I know how to fight or not. There's no reason to sucker punch me. Like, we can square up and do this like at least fairly. I mean, it's like I'm already disadvantaged. The fact that I'm fucking shorter and probably less in weight than everybody that I ever fought.
Right. So and then there's sucker punching.
Yeah.
So okay. Back to the interesting. Back to the anti-Semitism. Now, I don't know if I would consider in the middle of a fight, someone calls you a racial slur, you're fighting the guy. You're gonna punch him in the face, right?
Yeah.
But but besides that, other times.
There've been times that like I haven't been allowed into like the girl who I'm like seeing's house because her family doesn't allow Jews in the house. Or there was a time that I was, chilling with this black girl in the Bronx, and her father said, like, we're not letting no kikes in here.
Really?
And I was like, what?
No.
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Also there was I mean, I'm not gonna release her name, but there was this Persian girl who family is from Lebanon, and her family was definitely extreme and radical. And
wow.
I don't know if she knew that I was Jewish, but when she came over and we did what we did, and then we're talking, and she's like, "Oh, you're Jewish?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I have to go," and I was like, wait a second. I was like, listen, after we both just nut, you could leave. I get it. But now you're making it like you're leaving because I'm Jewish. So it's like, I never really knew.
I get it.
But we never spoke after that. But thanks for the nut. It was great.
Well,
Inshallah.
You know what I wanted to touch upon? Some of the racial aspects, because there's this false, this misunderstood connection between the Black liberation movement in this country and what the Palestinians are going through, because there's a false connection, and there's no connection, in my opinion, at all to it. So
I can simplify it for you. I can simplify why.
Please explain. Yeah, help me out with this.
Very, very similar to how those white liberals are for the Hamas movement. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing amount of propaganda. If you think about it, like the scale is 95% propaganda, 5% truth. And to get that 5% truth, you really got to find it. Like, you really got to look for it. And they're sinister with it because Wikipedia has been changed. Websites have been shut down. Videos have been flagged. So a lot of the truth, the real truth that's out there, is hidden. So if you're one of these people that chooses to get your information through TikTok,
right,
or Twitter, and you happen to be following somebody that's spewing that propaganda, you might tend to believe it because now your algorithms are showing you all of that shit. So just like the white liberals, Black people are just as susceptible to white people just because the color of their skin, doesn't mean anything.
Well, we're all susceptible to the algorithm.
Of course, we're all impressionable. We're all impressionable because some of us really lack the critical thinking skills that you need to understand that what you're looking at might not be an absolute or a finite version of the truth.
Well, and a lot of people are not even thinking about critical thinking at the time. They're not like, let me dig for the truth. They see a baby being pulled rubble. This is horrible. It's horrible. Next, I'm not doing investigations here, but also think about this. There are only 15 million Jewish people in the world, right? And there's another
that we know of. There are the lost tribes of Israel that If you follow Rudy Rockman, he's all about discovering, the 12 lost
Uh
tribes, and
huh.
we've only found like two of them. So there are like 100 million Jews that are out there that don't know that they're Jews because they've either been Islamicized, Hellenized, Romanized,
Well,
Russified.
well, I mean, for that matter,
Yeah,
there's more than that
right.
because Spanish Inquisition. We can, but there's
But yeah,
basically
there's 15 million
50
Jews.
million Jews, right? So if you think about the rest of the population, so how many people support the Jews in Israel? Very, very few.
Exactly.
So
Well, I wouldn't say few. There is. I mean, we could take like a percentage of. Let's say 10% of the 15 million Jews don't care about Israel because they don't really care about them being like they don't consider themselves Jewish to the point where they need to defend Israel. So
okay,
now you're cutting 10% off of that 15 million.
and then
So let's go.
you got,
Yeah,
and then you
let's
got
work that out.
5% who are completely against Israel and Jewish causes,
There you go.
because and why? Because
They're
in Judaism and Israel, you're allowed to be open with your opinions, and it's an introspective culture. So you're always going to get that when you have freedom, and in any population, but even more with Jewish, because the Jewish people challenge ideas.
some.
Introspection is invited. So whether it goes to good or bad or whatever, you're going to get a sizable population that's absolutely against their own
Yeah, agreed.
interests. You
And I'll
know?
tell you why. So, but there's an old Jewish proverb that you may or may not have heard at one of the many holiday dinners. That if you don't want to read through the whole service or do the whole thing, we start out by saying, "They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat."
Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And what that does is it dismisses every single thing that we've been through. So anyone that does not know the origin of our story, or even the past 200 to 300 years, could care less about the Jewish experience, other than I got to go to Hebrew school. All my friends are playing. I got to celebrate, this holiday. Oh, they're
Right.
getting presents on Christmas, and we don't get to put up a tree.
Hey,
So
hey,
it's a.
your sound just changed. I don't know why. Did something change?
Um, I'm not sure.
No, right? You just sitting there in front of your phone like I am. All right, you're good. Um,
You want me to sign out and come back in?
no, I don't think it's that serious. I hear you. Um, so
Anyone in the chat, if I sound retarded, let me know.
no, you don't. Does anybody hear him differently? If anybody's, do you hear yourself differently or no? No, now you're bullshitting me.
Nah, bullshit. I was gonna
Okay,
make this sound bad. Nah, nothing changed.
right. Hold on, let me turn the volume up. All right. So, you know, I want to get more into the racial thing because you seem like a guy like me, a Jewish guy with a lot of different kind of friends. We ran with different crews. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of my black friends have trouble understanding or really comprehending like the Jewish oppression and the Jewish struggle because it's a bit different because they look at it like this. Say, what the fuck are you talking about? My hook nose accountant drives a Mercedes. My people are poor in Brooklyn. So what the fuck are you talking about? You understand what I'm saying?
1,000,000%. Because I literally, I was gonna do a video on this the other day.
Okay.
Maybe what I'll speak a little bit slower in case my jibberty jabberty voice is being like filtered through Instagram. So, so one of my boys, I'm not gonna mention his name. I've been friends with him for over 20 years. I consider him my brother. African American, very, very popular in the hip hop industry. And when I tried telling him, do you have any idea about the amount of anti-Semitism that is going on right now in society and how bad it is to be a Jew? He's like, Joey, no matter what, at the end of the day, you're still white. And I'm like, so what makes me white? The complexion of my skin? Because when I'm out in the sun, I'm dark. And my family, I can trace the lineage to ancient Babylonia, which is Iraq. So when we're all from Judea, we all have Middle Eastern blood that's flowing through our skins.
Right.
The only reason why our complexion is a lighter shade is because our ancestors were raped by white colonizers, and all you have to have is a Jewish mother, and raising the child is going to be Jewish. That's why our skin complexion has changed over time. But with regard to me, I tried to explain to him, just because I've never been pulled over for driving while being Jewish doesn't mean that I haven't experienced other forms of anti-Semitism and racism that you couldn't possibly imagine, because you don't see it. The media doesn't report it. All you see is the Jews in Crown Heights, during the riots, where the Hasidic, and the black people, they were fighting. They don't remember that it was the Jews that stood side by side with Martin Luther King and marched with him and helped, actual movement.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Because the Jews, you got to understand, is a famous letter that was written to George Washington from the Jews in the late 1700s, basically saying, "Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you allowing us to be in your land. We hope that you tolerate us, and we are here to be, as good a people as we ever can." Like, really sucking up to George Washington. George Washington wrote a letter back saying, basically mocking them, saying, well, it'd be beyond my character to not thank you for thanking me and showing me how much you love me, but I will not tolerate you. I refuse to tolerate you, and you do not have to tolerate me. This is the experience that you are now in. You are no longer a Jew in the diaspora. You are an American. So, But at that same time, who didn't have equal rights? African Americans, who were slaves, and women. So in order to uphold this dream or this project of America, if the Jews did not stand up for civil rights, that means that the Jews might be next to be marginalized again, and they might be experiencing another diaspora similar to what we're experiencing now. So when African Americans were fighting for civil rights, the Jews of all people know what it's like to not have civil rights. We've been persecuted and enslaved for thousands of years.
Correct.
They don't know that, but through the journey together, I thought we would be able to have some sort of common ground and have the respect for each other, where now when we need it, it's like, yo, motherfucker.
Well, we have factual common ground. We just don't have understood common ground, really. But there's a point I wanted to make about that. The Jews stood side by side with Black Americans during the civil rights struggle when there was a price to pay for doing it. Right now, there's zero social cost to being like, I support BLM. There's zero cost. Zero
Right.
price to pay.
Maybe cancel culture if you have something to lose.
So if you support that, then you're with the cancel. So what I'm saying is, the Jews stood by when there was a price to pay, even getting killed. That's important to remember. Hey, what's up? There's no price to pay right now. You know what I'm saying? But our oppression is different, because you have to really, you can't be provincial and thinking, oh, I had an unpleasant experience getting pulled over by a cop. The Jewish guy probably didn't. You have to think larger, because there's only 15 million Jewish people in the whole world. That is such a tiny minority that, that they did this. Have you seen that thing? It was all over the internet. Village of 100.
I think so.
If the world was narrowed down to a village of 100, how many people would be illiterate? How many people would be starving? And you know how many Jews would be there?
99.
Zero.
I'm just thinking it because
No, I mean, it's like
we're the advanced culture when it comes to like science, medicine, technology, and there's a reason behind that too, which is it's kind of fucked up, but that's more like a history lesson. But continue. I didn't mean to cut you wisdom. Good.
It was like an experimental illustration of the world if it was narrowed down to 100, to illustrate the starving, how many are this, how many are illiterate, how many are poor. And in that, there's zero Jews. There's not. So that's important to understand. And then to look around at all the hatred of Jews from all over the world. And third, the main one, Jews only exist in two countries right now.
Pretty much.
There are only two countries in the world with over 1% Jewish population. Okay? So that's US is like 1.7%. Now people are like, what about France? They're the third, but it's less than 1%.
And
So
if you've been looking what's going on in France, like it's almost like one step shy of a pogrom. And for anyone that's watching, a pogrom is basically a calculated attack on random Jews. That's really what it is. It's like when people are trying to terrorize and force people out, they call it a pogrom.
right.
And I hate that we use that word because nobody knows what that word means anymore. Like it was Jew hate. That's it. Like they experienced some fucking Jew hate, and in France, they're experiencing it a lot all over the place. Because I have a lot of followers from France, and they try to tell me, as much as they can about what's going on. And
I've heard
it's like we're hating. Yeah, we're only here in Israel and America.
But just to finish the point, 100 years ago, Jews were in every country. Now it's basically two countries. That shows a lot. And guess what? The few Jews that are in Argentina or Mexico or France, maybe 100,000 here and there. Every year it's less and less. They're going to the U.S. and Israel. Listen, in 20 years, there's going to be almost no Jews anywhere else but the U.S. and Israel. I'm worried about us.
We'll see. We shall see.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm worried about us because I feel like this is a new era. The misinformation is so heavy,
Sinister.
and this new round of anti-Semitism is cloaked in the human rights garb, and that is a problem because everybody's instinct is to, of course, I'm on the human rights side, but it's a false human rights support.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying?
Right. And the fact that they're able to leverage information on supposed NGOs or what used to be reputable sources like AP or The Guardian or Amnesty International, when right now we see that, like if you Google right now, is Amnesty International biased towards Jews? AI will say, yes, it is.
Wow.
It is on a level that is unfathomable. It's almost like in 1948, after the Arab armies were defeated, they all got together and said, okay, we have to put a plan together because we obviously can't defeat them like this. So how can we do this? And then one person said, you know what? We need to take over the International Criminal Court at The Hague so that we can, so we can show favoritism. Then another one needs to say, you know what? We need to get the Republic of South Africa because they dealt with apartheid. So we should just call it an apartheid, over there. And we need news sources and we need legitimate people that are going to speak out. Let's take over the UN. Let's create an organization for the Palestinian refugees, but let's not do anything. Let's just use that to funnel money, and we're just going to stockpile it so that when we do kick out the Jews, we'll have money to build the great Palestine.
Yeah. It's so clearly biased, but here's the problem. I've been having some debates with some pro-Palestinian friends, and which is a pleasure because we completely, absolutely disagree, and we're friends.
Next time you do that, put me in your earpiece, and I will tell you.
I will.
I will give you everything that you need. I know.
So here's an interesting one. They said to me, "Are you telling me that every international human rights organization is anti-Israel?" And I'm like, yes.
95% of them because they've been created for that purpose. They've literally created it for. I'll give you an example. When I was promoting hip hop, my own hip hop, I created a page on Twitter, called Universal Hip Hop, and I connected it to a bunch of different news organizations, and like it was talking the news. But every once in a while, I would jump in there and say, new lyric and force a track, smashes, what public expected, and just funneled it in there because I'm a person, there's no accountability. Almost like meteorologists telling the weather. Like, if you get it wrong, what are you going to do? You're going to get fired? No. Okay? You could, as long as it's true at the time that you report it or the time that the time it's substantiated for the time being, as long as you offer a retraction, if it's found out to be not true. The problem is No news organization has taken accountability when all of that information has been debunked.
Yeah.
They just keep running Hamas propaganda over
I
and over and
know.
over.
And it's really disappointing, brother. It's really, because this is, and here's the thing. Here's what's the craziest part.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
just,
that it's illegal to kill those news reporters. I swear.
and it's still illegal. I looked at the statutes, but Jew hatred went up and skyrocketed after October
Right.
7th. That was the day the Jews were killed. Wrap your head around that, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like when you take a step back and look at that, like
You want to know what I could pinpoint, like the origin of that? I mean, there's two specific things. There's whether you're on the right or the left side when it comes to politics. This is not really about that right now, but it sort of is. There is a famous clickbait or a clip that was basically made to sound like Trump stood for, or at least was excusing the people that were marching in Charlotte.
I remember that
with the tiki torches. Right. That's one incident. And if you watch the entire, and this is what kind of woke me up, and I wish we could delete the word woke. You know, this is the thing that made me become awake. I hate the word. I hate the word.
Right. Right.
When I watched the whole thing, I realized that people have an agenda to make people think a certain way, but based on that agenda, for every action, there's a consequence. And the consequence is people thought it was okay to be like a neo-Nazi and Jews aren't going to take, my job from here. That was one.
Yeah.
Second was when Kanye went on Drink Champs.
I remember.
Now, shout out to EFN and Nori. I got a lot of respect for them, especially EFN because me and him have become friends, we've become just before friends. I wouldn't say we're friends. I'm not going to be invited to any parties or anything, but
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But we cool.
Right.
We cool.
Right,
I don't want to misrepresent, anything.
No, I get what you're saying.
But when he went on Drink Champs and said, I'm going DEFCON 5 on the Jews and, and started Jew this and Jew that.
Yeah.
He's a very, very, very liked guy by a lot of people. So if it's cool for him to hate Jews, I think I'll hate Jews now too. And I guess it's okay. And they canceled him because of it. Now I'm really going to hate Jews because you just took away Kanye. I want my new Yeezys.
Right. Right.
And then October 7th.
And then October 7th. Yeah.
So you have a trifecta of just a domino effect that just
and then to amplify all those issues is social media and the algorithm. So, but the point I was making, brother, is that there's so much more content made by pro-Hamas people than there is pro-Israel people because there's so fewer of them. So if you think about the total content posted on the internet, you're talking it's got to be 100, 200 to 1 at least. So
you're undershooting it.
So because here's the difference.
If you just think about the sheer number of, now I'm not saying that all radical Muslims are on the internet, and doing their thing, but if you just look at the fact that there's 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, right, and 10 to 15% of that are radical.
Yeah.
That is over 100 million, and that's just them. That we're not including the white liberals. We're not including, the black Israelites that hate us. We're not, the Jews that hate us. Like the Jacob Berbers and the Norman Finkelsteins,
right.
and the Avi Slyams, and
like what we were saying. Well, listen, you know what? You mentioned the word woke, and I have a definition for woke.
Okay.
Woke is the prioritize. You ready?
Yep.
Ready? This is what it is. It's the prioritization of subjective social concerns over strategic objective. Mic drop.
You should put that.
Do you agree?
You should put that on a T-shirt immediately.
That's what it is. The prioritization of subjective social concerns over strategic objective.
You know what? My friend, who's an Israeli content creator, the other Barack, everyone should follow him. He basically has a saying that basically simplifies that. when you take an over emotional situation with underinformed people. You get your end.
Yeah,
You
that
get your
works too.
you get your end result where you based on just emotion and no intellect, you fail to realize the actual magnitude of what it is that
Yeah.
you're doing. So it's like you're acting on. I mean, you said it much more poetically. Say that one more time.
It's the woke is the prioritization of subjective social concerns over strategic objective.
Right. Okay. So social concerns, overly emotional.
Subjective
Right.
social concerns
Right.
because they're subjective. So yeah,
Right. Objective social concerns. That's the
right,
overly emotional part.
right,
And then
right.
what was the second part?
Over strategic
Over
objective,
strategic objective.
which is like strategic objective
Lacking
of
the
the
knowledge lacking the information to make that critical decision. So I
yeah,
love it. I love it.
yeah. I
Let me
mean, I
know when
think
the
they
t-shirt's
both work.
available. I'm buying one.
But okay, so the hostage deal. Um, what do you mean? The hostage extortion. What's your take on it? What what how should we look at this?
You know, my friend Etan Chitayat, who's he's the owner of I'm That Jew. Make sure you go
Oh
get
yeah,
a.
yeah, yeah. Hell yeah, I follow him, of course, man. He's awesome.
He said, before you comment about the hostage deal, think if what you're saying would be received well by the hostage families. And
Yeah.
I wish he would have said that to me kind of before I put out my video the other day, where I lost it because I was just like, the thing is, when you know so much about history and you know so much about, I'm not trying to flex my intellectual muscle or anything like that, but when you know as much as I do about wars, battles, conflict, history, Middle Eastern diplomacy and ideology, as well as, Zionism ideology, you think about what's plausible and what's not.
Yeah.
And history has a tendency to repeat itself, but we'd like to think that we'd learn our lessons from doing the wrong things. We did a prisoner exchange for hostage, back in the day, like 1,000 for
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And out of that 1,000, the guy who put together October 7th was one of those 1,000.
Yep.
How do you square that circle? How do you give it? Now, if I'm one of the hostage families, I don't care about anything else. Like I just want my loved one home,
Exactly.
and then we'll
Of
deal with
course,
it later.
at all costs.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's like let this be the start. So that. But I have a huge reservation with how I feel about it, because there's a Islamic radical practice called Hudna, which is a fake ceasefire. It's defined as ceasefire, but they don't believe in doing any sort of negotiating or deals with Jews. It's literally forbidden in their ideology and in their religion. So it's all a setup for them to regroup, restock, rearm, gain strength, and plan another attack. That's historically.
But I want to revisit with what you said about that you were upset that you said something a certain way because of the hostage families.
Right.
What was it?
Because I said, it was basically like I was criticizing the deal because of how are we going to allow 1,000 terrorists back into society without any monetarization. And I, suggested that, and I went a little off, and I said they should have, if they're not detained in Israeli prison, they should have like an ankle monitor with maybe the explosives from the Hezbollah pages, attached, to them. And if one of them fucks up, there was a military tactic known as decimation that the French used on the Algerians, where if somebody fucks up, every 10th person is going to get killed. So if any of you terrorists do anything, every 10th person is going to get their leg blown.
Yes, of course. I did see that.
So I thought I was being a little insensitive rather than focusing on we need to get our loved ones home.
There is an inevitable conflict between Israel's national security and getting those hostages back. That's what's so
Agreed.
difficult. There's an absolute conflict.
And
But
that's why I made the example. Would you give the keys to your front door of your house where you live to your enemy? If we gave up control of the Philadelphia corridor, that's literally the same exact thing. There's nothing to ensure that they are not going to breach Israel's borders again from the easiest point.
right, right. Yeah, that's a problem, and that's what makes it so difficult. I mean, it's like this is not even a deal. It's like if a guy comes up to you on the street, puts a gun to your head, says, "Give me your money," and you give him the money, he walks away. You're like, "All right, well that was a deal." That's not a deal. This is not a deal. Okay, this is extortion,
I
and
mean, my thing is by allowing this deal to happen, it's basically saying it's okay for Hamas to stay in power for a little bit longer. They're not realizing that it should be the time to end it now. If you really gave a fuck about the Palestinian people, you would
I've
understand
always said this.
that
Yep.
you would need to surrender, swallow your pride, just like so in 1948. I'm going to give you a little history
Let's
lesson.
go.
I'm sorry. I'm
Let's
sorry,
go.
everyone.
Let's go.
In 1948, when the Jordanian forces invaded the old city, the Jews got the shit kicked out of them, and they had to surrender in
Yeah.
order to save their people.
Right.
There
Right.
is
Yeah.
there is something with admitting defeat within their religion because it's all about preserving Islamic honor of the great 1400-year caliphate of the most strongest people on the planet that almost took over the entire globe. So
Yeah.
that's a big factor in that's why they're celebrating this this ceasefire deal. They feel like they've won.
I have to say that about the ceasefire deal. We have 1,000 prisoners or whatever I think it might be more than that we're offering. Excuse me, in a genocide, are there prisoners? No, they're just people killed. So the fact that there's
How about
prisoners, just
is it a genocide if you vaccinate 97% of the children with
that
polio
not
vaccine?
very genocide. So what I have been doing is having debates with friends.
Man,
Like this is
I hope they put microchips in those things. I swear to God.
right.
That-
Right, but like so what I'm saying, I've been having debates with friends who are pro Hamas or I can't say pro Palestinian because if you're really pro
yep.
Palestinian, you'd be rooting for Israel to finish the job and rebuild with an honest, good government that cares about you.
Mhm.
Maybe a nice democratic government with rights. So if you cared about Palestinians, what you would want more than anything is for Hamas to be out of power.
Yep.
That is how I look at it. So people always ask, "Are you pro-Palestinian?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, man! I really am. I want them to have an awesome society, an open society. So I hate Hamas, and I want Israel to win the war, get rid of Hamas, because I'm pro-Palestinian. I'm pro-Israeli too, but I'm pro-Palestinian. I
That
this
that
is
pro
this is the path.
that segment of pro-Palestinian, unfortunately, doesn't exist. It
Yes,
doesn't.
but that is the real
I,
pro-Palestinian because I
I
know
agree. Not debating
that
at all.
under
I mean,
Hamas,
think about the
under
prerequisite.
Hamas,
Listen, think about the prerequisite that you would need mentality-wise. If you're pro, I did this on a story. Why is it that when you're pro-Israel, you can give a flying fuck about the Palestinian people, but if you're pro-Palestine, you could give a flying fuck about the Jews and Israel.
mhm.
I mean, so you represent the most niche segment in being pro-Palestinian and still caring about the Israeli people and still caring about the Palestinian people and want Hamas eradicated. Yours is the correct way. Good luck getting that
You
movement
know,
started because it doesn't exist.
what's interesting? I know I have not heard that much nuance on the other side, but here's why. Here's why. In our algorithm, because there's 500 to 1 post, we actually see where they're coming from. But because the algorithm is 201, they see none of ours because there's so fewer of them. Now, I don't understand. A lot of times when I'm talking to my profile, because I always engage with them, and nobody engages with them, but I do in a friendly way. And because no matter what, I'm like, we can argue to death and we can still be friends. Like, bro, like, grow up. That's how I see it. And so they always say this. I'm like, but what about Hamas? They're like, no, no, fuck Hamas. But what Israel's doing, and I'm like, what do you mean, fuck Hamas, fuck Hamas? That's the whole problem. The whole problem is Hamas. But that's it. I just don't understand why there's not more people saying, I don't like what Israel's doing, but first and foremost, we got to get rid of Hamas. Why haven't I heard that? Why haven't I
Because it
heard
doesn't
that?
exist.
I
Because
mean,
because the media has portrayed Hamas in a light that is not genuine.
absolutely,
When you
absolutely,
call, when you do not address an organization for what they are, which is a terrorist organization, a
correct.
terrorist faction, a Fatah, an absolute, the absolute opposite of what a democratic society should be.
Yeah,
You give
it's
them,
also a kleptocracy.
yeah, you get, yeah,
It's a
right.
kleptocracy. It's corrupt.
You give them, you almost give them de facto validity by not calling them for what they
Yeah,
are. And the more and more you see people supporting them, you must think that, okay, well, if the majority, is for them, then they must be right. But meanwhile, this is the most calculated, deceptive attempt at, delegitimizing a people and a state that has ever been in existence worldwide, and technology has allowed it to basically just evolve on such an exponential level that it's hard to keep up. The only thing
yeah,
that you can do sometimes is self-preservation. At the end of the day, what can I do to help my people boost morale? But I got to stay safe because ultimately it's 1,000 against one.
yeah, yeah.
So it's a tough puzzle to crack. The biggest thing that I can say is for Jewish influences, I know we don't have, tremendous, viewership on the live, but whoever watches this video, if you really want to do something to help the cause, your favorite influencers or the people that you care about, that you want their message out there, go to that profile page. Go to the top 3 buttons, click those 3 buttons, scroll down to where it says notifications, click on for live, on for posts, on for reels, on for stories. This way, when they post, you can attack that shit like a bunch of piranhas immediately. You like it, you comment, you save, you share it
Yeah,
to your stories. You've done all that you
that's
can
right.
without a dollar. And this
Yeah,
way, the more help that person grow, the quicker that message gets out there and possibly gets outside the echo chamber. When you
right.
collaborations, make sure you all are doing it and you accept simultaneously. The quicker you accept it, the quicker it can fuck up the algorithm and we can travel outside the echo chamber, hit the explore page so that the other people in the world that need to see the message and hear it actually do, rather than us just saying, from me to Lottie to Bob, to me to Lottie to Bob, and we're just fucking
That's
going.
a good idea. That's a good idea. Wait, so there's a couple other things I wanted to say. My pro-Palestinian friends are very adamantly not anti-Semitic. They scream it from the top of the buildings, and I'm not saying they are. I don't like to point a finger and call somebody anything. Actually, I don't like to point fingers. I could talk about facts. I don't have to call anybody anything or label anybody anything. That's where you get in trouble. You
I was
know,
fine. That's good.
there's a good
Yeah,
policy. And it makes
everyone's an asshole. I mean, listen, I'm not prejudiced. I hate everyone equally. So
you hate what?
I said I'm not prejudiced. I hate everyone equally.
Right, no, exactly. But so what they try to do in their discussion is I love Jews, and in fact, there's a lot of Jews against it, and say, look, Israel has nothing to do with Jews. Israel is just a militaristic state, and I'm not talking about Jews. And I'm like, you are talking about Jews. Israel is Jews. There's nothing more Jews than Israel. Now, there are
Yeah. So
some,
what I would do is I would push back and say, you say Israel is not Jews, but I have a question for you. Who are the Jews? Who do you think the Jews are? And then just stop and let them
yeah,
answer. And say, well, what do you mean? Like, who do you think the Jews are? Why
yeah,
don't you summarize who you think the Jews are?
yeah,
And then whatever they're going to answer, it's going to be wrong. They're not going to know. And then that's the chance that you have to say, listen, with all due respect, I'm going to explain who the Jews actually are. The Jews are not white, born rich, with a silver spoon, privileged, upper class people. The Jews are the remnants of a global attack of annihilation, and we are the remnants of a
yeah,
of a of an almost lost society that is just struggling to coexist and be recognized as equals amongst people that have hated us for a lifetime.
That's right.
Like majority of the Jews that are in Israel today, 70% of them are Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews with darker complexions than any of the Palestinian people, because 850,000 were expelled from all the Arab nations after 1948 when Israel declared its independence. So you have Iraqi Jews, you have Yemeni Jews.
Was that a genocide? Think about all we
No,
have to do is
that was ethnic cleansing.
That was ethnic cleansing.
Right.
You're right.
That's
ethnic
exactly
cleansing. That's clear ethnic cleansing. And you could just see the stats. Anybody could look. Anybody's free to Google the amount of Jews in Baghdad in 1940. Amount of Jews in Baghdad now. Amount of Jews in Tehran. 1940. Amount of Jews.
I mean,
that's all you have to look at.
The only problem
all you have to look at.
The only problem that I have, I thought that the name of the operation was a little racist. I mean, the name to get the Jews out of Iraq and out of Yemen, it was called Operation Magic Carpet. So that was the only thing that I really like.
When was that?
It was in the 1950s.
When bro.
So
they said anything they wanted back then.
It was still like, I mean, listen, Aladdin was around for Alibaba and Aladdin and magic carpets. To be like Arabia and magic carpets, and we're flying the Jews, out of that. I just thought, like, it's just funny,
And,
they Operation Magic Carpet.
Magic Carpet back then, bro. They didn't give a shit. But I want to make a point. Why isn't anybody talking about how honorable Israel is to negotiate for body parts of its people, to negotiate for its hostages so passionately that you're willing to give up 1,000%? How come not one person says, wow, that is a country with heart? You know what I'm saying? They give up live people for body parts.
Because people see the headline and like you said it earlier, people see the headline and they process the headline rather than what the meat and potatoes of the story actually is.
Yeah.
Me personally, I didn't even really look at it from that angle, and I probably should have, and now I'm kind of pissed that I didn't think about it. So fuck you. But
think about that.
But no, when you think about it, it's like, how moral do you have to be? It's like, how, or is it? Because people might see it as desperation, rather than like, we care so much about our people that we're willing to sacrifice 1,000 of these bloodthirsty fucking jihadi terrorists back into society, and we better have implanted them with some sort of fucking device that we can know where they are.
There's gotta be some plan for them. There's gotta be.
But
here's the thing. I mean, there's so many killers there anyway. You know what I mean? They're all killers, man. Not all of them, but there's so many killers because
when you look,
they're brainwashed.
The past 30 years of indoctrination, right?
And we need to talk about that. We need it.
I've been screaming it from day one, because for the past 30 years, the UNRWA schools in Gaza and in the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, are flooded with textbooks that teach you, if 2 jihadi martyrs killed 2 Israelis today, and tomorrow they kill 3 more, how many dead Israelis do you have?
This is from a young age.
They put on plays at 5 years old, dressed in full Hamas gear, fake guns, kidnapping Israelis, and the parents sit around and they cheer. It's to the level of child abuse, and the fact that these human rights people don't step in and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" Yeah, I mean, they did that with Vietnam when they were training child soldiers.
Why can't people say, "I hate what Israel's doing. I think it's horrible, but let's also address the brainwashing"? No, you're letting all that go, and here's the problem.
Because it doesn't play with their narrative.
Hold on. If you're pro-Palestinian, don't you want them to live well? Don't you want them not to be brainwashed? Why would you rather make excuses and pretend they're not brainwashed when we all know that they are?
It's similar to,
I mean, if
what
you
goes
care
on
about them,
they hate us more than they care about them.
That's the obvious thing.
That's it. Like, I mean, their hate runs so deep that they don't even care about life. Like, they're so willing to become a shaheed, which is a martyr, for the cause. And totally will. Like they're born that this is the right way. Like we're born to, you know, go to school, you know, do good in school, do your homework, you know, play sports,
Right.
you know, don't hit girls, you
No,
know, and don't put
the
gum in
best
their
is to
hair.
be a martyr. But here's the thing. Now, what do you see on the media? You don't see that. All you see portrayal of Palestinians is women and children in rubble.
Yep.
Um,
And most of the
now, of
pictures are,
course,
yeah,
without context. And here's the thing: who's not going to be offended by a baby being pulled with rope?
of course.
Now, without any further context, you see that, and then what do you see? What do you see when you see Israelis? Nothing but soldiers. Nothing but
Yep.
soldiers. Now, that's an obvious thing. You don't see the Hamas guys shooting, but they're in a military conflict. There are two military sides shooting at each other. Sure, one is a lot more powerful, but one doesn't even want to be there. They just have to be there to destroy Hamas, obviously. And any country in the world would do the same, but 100 times more brutal with 100 times less care for
You
civilians. Any
know what
country obviously would have
you
to,
know what I almost
you know.
I wish we had somebody that would hack the planet of every single media device and play the 43-minute video, and you can't turn it off. You have to watch it.
Yeah.
You ever see the movie A Clockwork Orange?
Really?
You know the part where Alec is sitting in the chair and they have his eyes pinned up and they're dropping the drops and they're showing him?
Yeah.
Like, I want to do that to every, especially the Jewish pro-Palestinian people. I want to sit them in a fucking chair. I want to strap their eyes open and I want to make them watch fucking girls getting raped, fucking fathers getting their heads cut off in front of their fucking wives. I want them to see grenades being thrown in. I want them to see the fucking atrocities, and I want to fucking videotape them pissing and shitting in their pants, and I want to fucking send it to all their fucking friends. And then I want to smack them, and then I'll let them go.
And then that's for starters.
Yeah.
That's just to get going.
Yeah. Then we can be friends. Maybe.
Yeah.
So it's, we didn't release the video. They don't see the shit that we
But
see.
even what we're talking about, I'll tell people who just been seeing these little quick clips on TikTok about rubble and say, hey, do you understand the brainwashing that occurs in this society? Do you understand the martyrdom? Do you understand the money that's paid? Anybody who commits a terrorist attack against a Jew gets money.
Pay for slave.
And how about, what's wrong with infrastructure? The kleptocracy. Why are the top 5 Hamas guys billionaires? What business did they start? I don't remember. It's clear. It's obvious. It's not even denied. And it's ignored. And it's ignored. But listen, when I tell people, what about the brainwashing in Gaza, in the territories by Hamas and all that? And they go, in the schools, they go, Israel's the same way. I say, no, it is not.
No,
Not
at all. Not even a little bit.
It's all the same. Lack of
not even a little bit.
Thinking. Of course not. It's like American curriculum.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, how many Palestinian Nobel Prize winners are there? How many Jewish Nobel Prize winners? It's really not the same education.
I don't even like the comparison because Palestinian is sort of an ethnicity-ish, and Jewish is an ancient tribe.
Very true.
That's what it is.
Palestinian is a mix of Egyptian, Jordanian, Syrian, and Lebanese. And Yasser Arafat convinced them that it's an identity in 1964 when the PLO was founded.
By the way, Yasser Arafat's an Egyptian. But that's not the point.
Right. And he was kicked out of Jordan and he went to Lebanon. It's like, he finally had to end up in Gaza and the West Bank because he got kicked out of everywhere. I mean, there's so many things I can tell you about Yasser Arafat. And it was really, he was the one everything was ready to go with the Oslo Accords.
I remember.
And all of a sudden, he just said, the Jews were never there. Temple Mount doesn't exist. There was never a King Solomon or King David's temple. We were there forever. And that was it.
Yeah.
He made up that lie and convinced the fucking people. And then they all have to back hit, what he said, because if they don't, you end up dead.
Well, let me ask you something, man. Why the hell do people hate you so much? What is your theory?
I think I'm pretty fucking awesome. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
the best, man.
If you can't get along with me, there is something wrong with you.
No, it's not, but not on an individual basis, because it's not on an individual, it's a group basis.
I mean, the only thing that I can think of is they have a false perception of who the Jews are. That's why I say ask them, who do you think the Jews are? A lot of people think that we are all born with a silver spoon. We have some sort of entitlement that Jews look out for one another. We all have a secret access to a Rothschild account, where
Right.
we're getting money to do whatever we want to do in life.
Yeah.
And then we get
That's the
certain advantages
misunderstanding.
over. Like, it's a
Yeah.
false perception that we have, I don't know, like an unfair advantage to get ahead.
They're
Meanwhile, we have
basically,
to
no,
work harder
here's what
because
it
we know
is.
how much you guys hate
Here's what
us.
it is. Jews have an extra helping of white privilege. Um that's essentially the image. But when you communicate the number of Jews in the world, 15 million, and then you look on a map and you say, let's look at how many Muslim countries there are. Let's look at, if Jews were so colonial, why do they have a tiny strip of land? They're
Agreed.
terrible at it.
Yep.
And they're terrible at genocide because the Palestinian population continues to grow.
Yep. I love how the side that calls us colonizers and colonial power, they parade themselves with a colonial flag that was made by a white guy named Mark Sykes in 1916.
Which one? Which one is that?
The Palestinian flag.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
all of them really. The Sudan, the United Emirates. I mean, it's all a variation of that. But he created the Palestinian flag, so they're parading a colonial flag because they, in a sense, were colonized. Like, you got like balls calling us colonizers when you're parading around with a white person's
Honestly,
flag.
this is the fact. The Jewish return to Israel is the largest decolonization movement
Amen.
and the most successful. It's the most successful native return movement in the history of the world. And it's such a beautiful thing that should be celebrated. Especially
That
after they
it
were,
was that beautiful thought that actually inspired the people who were around the Balfour Declaration to actually get that get that sign, because of the mistreatment of Jews over the past couple of hundred years, and the fact that in the Bible, it basically is an unwritten chapter that could be added to the great story of helping the chosen people, and by chosen people, we chose to be God's people, not like God chose us. So that's a very, very big misconception. We chose to Abraham chose
right,
to make the covenant with God. But in order to fulfill the next great
wrap it up.
chapter of the greatest story alive and help the Jews migrate back to their promised
Yeah.
land, it almost has like a romanticized type of feel to it. And a lot of people in like the early 19th century England were really, really about that because they were devout Catholics, and they believed in the Jewish people because Jesus was Jewish and it's the promised
Yes, he
land.
was. He was a Jewish
It's
rabbi.
the
He was a
story.
Jewish rabbi
Right.
until the day he died. But here's what I want to say. The portrayal of Jews as these violent, bloodthirsty people is the furthest thing from the truth. And I know, listen, are there asshole, mean Jews? Of course there are, as there
Of
are in any
course.
group. Now, but what I know about Jews is they are non-violent, intellectual, mostly timid, avoid problems, the most non-combative, studious, rule following,
Respectful.
respectful. I mean, this portrayal, I'm like, have you met a Jew? What Jew do you know like that? And Israel is the same way. Yeah, the Sabras are, the rough around the edges, sweet on the inside. They're Jews. It's the same thing. There's heart. To imply that Jewish soldiers are purposefully sniping children is a lie. And I know, because I know Jewish people, I know my Jewish country. Never. I turn
As
on,
soon as whenever I
never,
debate somebody,
bro, never, bro. I'm telling you.
when I whenever I debate somebody, I'm already ready for that sentence when they say, "Well, why does Israel snipe?" And I'm like this. I'm like babies in the head with that picture that was debunked in the New York Times
Right.
with that X-ray that is not possible. That's the story you're talking about. Yeah, no, it's been debunked. Next, and I just stop. I stop them right there, dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
Knowing the opposing facts, and like, so I obsess about it. I watch Al Jazeera. I read the fucking texts and lectures from, Mark Lamont Hill and from Avi Shlaim and
Right.
from Norman
You
Finkelstein.
stomach all that shit, huh?
So I know where they're coming from. So I know how to fucking smash those fucking ants with a sledgehammer with the truth. Because I'll verify where they got their information from, where it's opinionated and not substantiated, and then I'll crush them with the actual facts from the archives of the person who has actually explored it and has the right to do so. So it's
Yeah.
the amount of misinformation is a driving force in the way that they think
This
about
is
us.
I feel like it's a tidal wave. I'm so concerned, and I'm a little dark, a little pessimistic about this because of the ignorance and the social media spreading like the wildfire in LA. It just burns. And again, there's no quest for critical thinking. Because before critical thinking, there has to be a quest for it. I don't see that.
I
I
mean, the
see
biggest thing,
perfectly satisfied with the fucking image they see. I'm good. I'm good.
the fact that we did not have a president that stood up and said, American people, Israel is not committing a genocide, point blank, period.
Right.
Like the fact
Right.
that he didn't just say that, the fact that what he did say was the protesters, they have a point. It's like, wait, what the fuck? They just burned an American flag outside the building.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
I know.
it's like
And
we're in a retarded version of the
but
Matrix.
that's all they did was both sides everything and to avoid an escalation. And all that happened was an escalation. Now,
I mean, really, I think it was just an attempt to swing Dearborn, Michigan, that historically,
and they
looked like
voted for
they were getting.
Trump, and they voted for Trump anyway. They voted for Trump anyway. So here's the thing. At the end of the day, whatever side you fall on, you can't really disagree that a clear voice is better for peace.
I
A
agree.
clear voice. Because
Yeah,
nobody will start nothing. You say, look, Israel, this is what should have been done. Israel was attacked. Hamas is obviously a problem for the Israel and the Palestinian people. Israel's going to do what it has to do to dismantle Hamas and get its hostages back. And none of you are going to get involved. Do you understand? Because if you do, you got to deal with us. End of story. If that would have happened, there'd be peace right now.
yeah,
Israel would have taken care of the Hamas operation, and they probably would have been rebuilding.
yep. The problem is that Blinken is not Kissinger,
Yeah.
and Biden is not Nixon. There's a famous video. I'll send it to you because it's great. Where after Israel was attacked in '73 in the Yom Kippur War,
Yeah.
Israel had a real threat that they were going to lose the war. So America, Kissinger, who was the aide to President Nixon, had a discussion with him and said, Nixon was like, well, what do we have that we could send them? And like, oh, we could send, these gigantic, fighter planes, filled with all of this, stuff for a military war because, we had it from Vietnam. And they said, well, send three of them. And it's like, well, Nixon's like, well, three of them doesn't sound like many. And then Kissinger said, well, that's kind of what we can handle, from, the political landscape, what we can get away with. And Nixon said, are you kidding me? He's like, listen, leave that shit to me. Send everything.
Yeah.
Send all 25
Yeah.
because they're going to be just as mad at us for sending 3 as they would 25. So you take care of that, and I'll handle the politics side of it. But Israel needs to be saved, point blank, period, because they're our greatest ally. And if we had that kind of messaging from Biden, then we might not be in this mess. We might not be having this live. Things might be a little bit different on the ground, and Israel might be out of the war.
I agree. And there's a difference between ceasefire does not mean peace. Ceasefire distances peace. I say, you want a ceasefire? I don't want that. I want peace. I want peace. A ceasefire prevents peace because it keeps everything there, and
Keeps it stalled.
it's just
You're
gonna
just
flare up.
pushing pause on the game.
We all know it's gonna flare up. We all know. So if you want peace, and this is what I don't understand, like if I was a Martian and came down and looked at what's really going on, okay, the Palestinian people in Gaza have been under Hamas's rule, and you look at what Israel's doing, you look at the blockade and all that stuff. I mean, how could you not say, oh my God, this corrupt, kleptocratic, violent, oppressive regime needs to go for the sake of the Palestinian people? More than anything.
I
More
mean,
because the Israeli people are fine anyway. They are. And
ask yourself this: if you need just a reality check, ask your Palestinian friends this: if at the snap of your fingers you could make this happen, which would you rather? To live in peace side by side with the Jews, or for all the Jews to be dead? What would be your choice? What would be easier?
yeah,
You'd be surprised what a lot of them say.
really? Because
Absolutely.
everybody I talk to would be like, no, they always say absolutely they have nothing against Jews. And that's how they like start the discussion.
Oh, and
Because
next time they say, like, I don't have nothing against Jews, I just have something against Zionists. Be
Zionism.
like, ask them, be like, what's Zionism? And then I want you to throw out three names to them. I want you to throw out Theodore Herzl,
Yeah.
Vladimir Jabotinsky, and Abraham Stern. Even throw in Menachem Begin. Be
Yeah.
like, you know about Zionism. You hate all Zionists? What's Zionism? And who do those four people represent from the Zionist perspective? And just sit there and stop and don't say a word. And I guarantee you they will not say nothing. Because Zionism is very, very different. There's two components of Zionism. One, Jews being able to self-determine in their ancestral homeland,
Okay.
which is what everyone knows. The second component of that is the practical application of that. How do you make that happen? Zionism is the belief and then the action of it. One person is going to think that we can assimilate with the people that are on the land and we can live in peace and everything will be hunky-dory. The next person will say, we can assimilate and live in peace with them and be hunky-dory, but, punks jump up, they're going to get beat down. The next person says, fuck assimilating, kill them all, get them all the fuck out of here. The next person says, fuck all of you, fuck all of them, I'm taking over everything. You're going to have very, very different components of people's ideology when it comes to Zionism, but at the end of the day, it's all about Jews having a safe haven where they're not going to get persecuted and killed anywhere else in their place that they first came from.
But
That's it.
No, I agree. But let me take it one step further. I don't like the word Zionism. I don't think it should ever be used. Because what was the word for the Pakistani movement of self-determination in 48 when their lines were artificially drawn? There was a word for it. I don't know what it is. What about the word for India's self-determination? What was the word?
Basically, it's a movement that happened during the late 18th and early 19th century, which was called nationalism. So that's the only thing that you can describe it. Zionism is just Jewish nationalism.
But what I'm saying is, it already happened. There's already a Jewish state. So you don't know what the movement for Pakistani independence was called because they're already a state. I guarantee there was a word. Why are we even talking about it? Why are we talking about like it's at issue? There's been a thing for a
we're
long
Jews.
time.
Because people love to talk about the Jews.
That's right. There's
Especially
no
good-looking
other.
ones like us. So they're gonna talk a lot of shit about us. That's ridiculous.
Hold on. Is there any other movement of self-determination that's hated around the world? No. It's just the one movement of the Jews. Now, because they're militaristic, because they're this and that. Isn't it funny? The one person, the one thing that offends you is Israel. When we all know there's way worse shit going on all over the world. And now even I just want to make one point. The Nakba, the alleged Nakba, when 850,000 Palestinians,
700,000.
700,000, right? And there were different things going on, but just assume that Nakbas occur all over the world all the time. Afghanistan.
You want to know why?
There was just a Nakba. Pakistan kicked out like 1.5 million Afghans. Nakba.
Technically, technically in Syria, like there was a Nakba because they were all displaced, when Assad's regime fell.
Right. I mean,
and then
this.
and then there were one. This Nakba, you know what the Nakba really is? So they call it a catastrophe, but it wasn't a catastrophe that they all were uprooted from their houses. It was a catastrophe because they lost to the weakest bunch of people in existence. There's a letter to stir up the Palestinian people in 1898 from an Egyptian scholar named Rashid Ryder, who basically was the teacher of Haj Amin al-Husseini, the first leader of the Palestinian people, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, that said, and called them to the Palestinians, said, you non-complacent entities, like, because they had no identity. Are you really going to let these people that know so much about society and medicine and science overrun you so easily that you will become their second-class citizens and their slaves?
Right.
So that was to rile them up, basically saying that the Jews were the inferior. We lived as demis under Muslim society for hundreds of years under the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And it was only until the early 1900s that kind of went away. But the Ottoman Empire fell once the Young Turks cooed the Ottomans, and then then they were defeated. They were overthrown.
Well, you know what this reminds me of? Jews were hated before they had a country because they were nomads. They had no country. They were hated. They were stateless people. Now
Listen,
they're hated because
we were hated because we were poor, and then we were hated because we were rich. We were hated because we were Jewish. Then we were hated because we were converts. Then we were hated because we were there. Then we were hated because we didn't go there.
well,
It's like they
listen,
find a new reason.
we used to be
they find a new
hated.
reason all the time.
Remember, in Europe, we were hated because we were a different race. We were brown. Now we're hated because we're white. And yeah, so it's. But anyway, man, listen.
Yeah, I'm
Great
sure we could
talking to
talk
you,
for
man.
fucking hours. I'm sure. But this has been great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
man.
I appreciate you taking the time, and inviting me to your platform. I'm glad that I had the time to do it. So, I wish we could have done it sooner because I think it would have been valuable for a lot of people earlier on to hear it. But we're here now, baby.
And
So
look, next time
we can do
I'm
it
in New
again.
York, we'll do a live. We'll do it in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I listen. I'll have plenty of bugs for us, brother.
and everybody, thanks for joining us. Appreciate y'all. We're gonna cut out some clips. If there's anything you like, let me know, and we'll put it out there.
My
Street
brother.
Lawyer Podcast.
I appreciate
you,
you.
dog.
I'm
Appreciate you,
Israel
bro.
Powell.
Good
Yes,
shit.
sir.
Yeah, let's go.
Peace.